Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
My name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. I'm very annoyed.
You sure are.
George is very annoyed.
I think we want to be maybe starting this episode by telling NVIDIA to go fuck themselves.
NVIDIA. Hey, NVIDIA. Go fuck yourself, buddy.
Yeah, like love my RTX 3070. Like, you know, it's all fun and cool and mid-range and rad, but yeah, it really sounds like you need more NVENC fucking session stuff.
I don't know. It's just telling me I'm like recording too many concurrent sessions. You've no more sessions for you. Session Nazi over here. So I can't have any more sessions. I can stream or I can record or I can't do both, but I can't do both.
Yeah, it's like you have too many sessions running when you currently have, to your knowledge, 0 running.
No
which
other sessions
doesn't
running.
make any sense. But anywho, that's fun. That's nice.
That's
Up
normal.
yours, NVIDIA.
For people who have no idea what any of that means, basically we've been trying to start the show for about half an hour unsuccessfully.
Yeah,
But what that means is today we are recording from the past. There is no live, and this is our last will.
Hello, the
and
future.
testament.
Yeah.
We are, of course, as George said, a podcast about newsy type stuff and things. And today we have 5 delicious news stories for your ear holes. And the first one.
Don't say ear holes.
Ear holes.
No.
Yep.
Ear
No, I veto that.
Ear orifice.
As an equal share partner of this
chasm.
endeavor, I absolutely veto the fuck out of that.
Ear chambers, ear passage,
No, none of that's
ear
Gosh.
caverns,
No.
I like
ear
cavern.
portals, sound portal.
Immediately sorry that I said it.
Yeah. Well, we're throwing a lot of stuff at the board. We'll have to have a production
Yeah.
meeting later and sort that out, which we definitely won't do. But the lead story this week is that a recent announcement by China came out that they're going to start allowing international students back to Australia, and I'm assuming other countries as well. Previously, due to all the COVID restrictions in China, basically anyone attending an Australian university was basically doing it online. So what they're
it's
saying
not
now
just
is
that they'll allow students to come back of their own free will and of their
they're
own
sort of
accord.
ordering to.
They're basically saying we're not going to recognize any of your online accreditations anymore, so you have to be there in person if you want this degree to count for something. Which has basically made about 40,000 Chinese students go, oh, fuck. I need to be in Australia immediately now. Cool.
Yeah, I kind of need to be there straight away, or whatever qualification that I was planning to start just won't matter.
Or I'm in the middle of.
Way to really flip the table on people's lives.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was watching a statement from, a peak body rep for Australian universities. Like, we welcome the announcement. We've been after this result for a couple of years now, but it would have been nice to have some notice with just like pale white eyes.
I love that. Just like, we now cross live to the peak body for universities in Australia, and they're just kind of there, like really disheveled. There's clearly party streamers and stuff in the background, and maybe a bit wine drunk, and be like, yes, we are very
Love this. Great.
welcoming, and we welcome back our international students. Please bring money.
Yeah.
Please.
No, we're thrilled to have you
His
back.
dear
I was
God.
just in the middle of Nan's 90th when I got the call, so I'm a little bit slightly half pissed, but no, this is great.
Yeah,
news.
great. Woohoo!
Are we live?
It's it's a double-edged sword. So it's great for the university's bottom line because they get potentially more hard currency. There's a dollar multiplier effect associated with it, yada, yada, yada. However, the problem is, where are you going to put 40,000 people that arrive here to live for 12 months or more
Just put
in
them
the
at the
space
G.
of 3 weeks?
Put them at the
Put them at the
MCG.
G. Put them at the Mickleham Quarantine Centre, which they're now closing down. This is the thing. There is already a rental shortage in Australia's 2 main cities. I don't know about the other cities. I'm assuming it's similar across the country for most of the major capital cities. There's a rental shortage, okay? If you go out there at the moment, prices are jumping, rentals are going like that. I've got a friend who literally the other day telling me he could not find a rental property as a solo tenant, right? So
Classic feminazis trying to hold down the white man. Okay, it's just classic.
What?
Classic. Why I can't get ahead? Okay, when's the white man going to get a chance?
I don't even see where.
It's not even a funny joke, but
I don't even see where the satire comes from there. I was just like, what are you satirizing?
Can't say anything.
What he's saying is that
anything nowadays.
He's assuming that my friend is white and middle-aged, which he is.
Well,
that's beside the point. That's beside the point, George.
So you're just assuming that my friend is white, middle-aged, and a man. And yes, that happens to be the case, but I don't see the point of your joke.
Yes. Well, of course, things have been famously easy and well for anyone who is not white, middle-aged, or a man. Oh, always goes great for them.
So we don't really have the infrastructure and the system at the moment to really just turn the tap on, less a tap, more a fire hose.
Yeah.
In this instance.
The housing tap, I think you're confusing your metaphors.
Sorry, yeah. I mean, obviously, a lot of these universities have on-site accommodation, like Monash, for instance, over the last 10 years has been building apartment buildings on campus.
Well, they've been busy
out of the wazoo.
Airbnb-ing them, I guess. I don't know what's happened to these apartments that they don't have the capacity to take students. But
and I guess this is 40,000 for the whole country, we're assuming. But, there are other international students as well, not just from China. So
that's quite a lot.
It's quite a lot. It's quite a lot to happen over a short period of time is probably the big thing. For Chinese students, or any international student for that matter, it would be pretty hard to find a spot if you can't get on campus accommodation. And if anyone who's generally looking for an apartment, it's going to be even harder now as well.
Good. You know what I've said? Housing in Australia has always been too free, easy, and affordable. It's time we really tighten things up for a change.
Yeah, my God, the way that we're specifically, this is an SBS I think article that brought this to our attention that shat me was the way that this issue is being framed as well, because they've mentioned obviously, as we discussed at the top, the angle that the pressure of the university degrees not being valid if they're taken online and how that's completely fucked like some students situations. They interview a particular student who's just like, well, I was planning to be coming into Australia in a couple of months, but no, now I have to be there like yesterday because of this announcement, which is a huge inconvenience. But they talked about from the rental side of things of being like 40,000 people wanting to rent on top of people who are already trying to rent. I think they're mentioning Sydney specifically in this instance.
The vacancy rates in properties at the moment in very Melbourne City is like 1%. Like it is basically impossible for you to have a vacant apartment for rent in Melbourne or Sydney. It is like not possible, essentially.
It's crazy. They get snapped up like that. Framing it like that to be like, there's just not enough properties to be going around. And that's having the effect of that no one's investing in the property market to have investment properties. So house prices are plummeting. And then the next section of the article is, but good news, with all these people wanting to come in and look for places to rent, people might decide to buy them because the demand's going up and then property prices will stop falling. I'm like, none of that is good news. Like, what about the angle of, hey, how about those of us who are clogging up wanting rental properties? It's easier for us to buy shit. Maybe the prices of houses going down would be good for schmoes like me.
Well, that's the thing. It's like if you're someone who's a renter who wants to get into the property market, who wants to own, if you buy a place and then exit the rental market, that reduces the amount of demand in the rental market, right? So
correct.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like Tom,
all framed in a way.
How does it impact white middle-aged male property investors? That's the key question.
Oh, well, it just lessens the value of their properties, George, and that's World War III as far as we're concerned.
That's the only thing I'm concerned about. When are the white people going to get a chance?
Mm-hmm. I mean, all of this is really to say, I mean, this is what I like to harp on about, is that there's not enough supply in Australia in the housing market, which, I feel very acutely working in a builder.
That's part of it, right? Like, certainly there not being enough supply is part of the equation. If there were more houses, then there would be less overbuilt demand for the houses that do exist, right? But there's also other structural problems with Australia's housing market that have to do with investment laws and negative gearing. Okay, like it is incredibly beneficial for people, the way the tax system is set up is to advantage property investors over all other kinds of investors, right? So if you've got a property and you're renting it out on the market and you're losing money on that property, you can declare those losses against your income tax. So basically what the government is what they're doing is they're subsidizing a losing investment. I'm not aware of other circumstances where the government says, oh, you lost some money on your crypto? Don't worry, we'll get you back on some of that. You lost some money on your shares? Nah, don't worry, mate. She'll be right. Like, I
don't know if negative gearing is the silver bullet.
No, but then what I'm saying is this is there is a confluence of factors. Like, yes, there's not enough supply. Yes, we're looking too much at housing as an investment. There's too much of there's tax legislation that basically incentivizes property investing from a taxation standpoint. There's also NIMBYism, these overprotect, not in my backyard, right? These people
can't have an apartment building in the leafy green suburbs of Toorak,
because people, angry middle-aged white people in inner city suburbs don't want to have a bunch of lower cost, high density dwellings next to their fancy house with four bathrooms, two kitchens and a tennis court, and then all of a sudden you've got a 60 apartment complex right next door. Well, that lowers the value of your house. So those people don't want those high density apartments there either. And
Jesus, come to my neighborhood. You just see those posters fucking everywhere.
Yeah, it's not to give away where Tom lives, but there's no Woolworths trucks on? No Coles trucks. There's one of those major supermarkets.
There's a Coles already here, so they're all like that. Fine, we're happy with one giant supermarket and its trucks. I guess must be coming around
as though they don't buy stuff from the supermarkets. Like, as though it's just like if no one was patronizing these supermarkets, they would go out of business. Obviously, you guys are using the supermarkets, so it needs to be.
Yeah, obviously they're using the supermarkets, and also they're putting up I saw all the local businesses being like, the smaller businesses saying like, no apartment towers or whatever. Stop the Woolworths towers is how it's sort of framed, because it's one of those Woolworths on the bottom and then apartments built on top of the structure. Kind of proposal. They're like, stop the Woolworths towers. I'm like, don't you want more people living in this local area that would then purchase from your local business?
No, they don't. See, this is the thing. It's actually pretty short-sighted. And the other thing is the ability of sort of white middle-aged people to get in there and fuck up and it's not just the NIMBYism, right? It's that the fact that they don't want it, but the fact that our legislation around the local government legislation around zoning and density and all that sort of stuff is also so broken that for people that oppose those kinds of developments, they can tie up the process for months and years. And that's why you see these mega projects go up instead, where it's like a 50-story building in the middle of South Yarra, and you go, how the fuck did that get built? And it's like, well, because that's what they needed to do in order to grease the wheels enough to get it going and incentivize enough people.
I mean, the South Yarra
in order to be able to get it going,
is an interesting one, because the city council in that area deliberately, I think, rezoned a bunch of those areas to allow higher story.
Sounds like an episode of Utopia.
But look, there are swings and roundabouts. Like in my street, we've already got a number of, say, 10 to 20 apartment blocks going down the street, which intermix with heritage listed sort of either 3-4 bedroom dwellings going down, and we're talking it's a pretty good mix. Like one every two houses is one every two properties or three properties is an apartment block, and then the rest of them are houses. What they wanted to do was knock down the building next door to me, which is also an apartment building. They wanted to knock down the 3 adjacent dwellings next to that, so 2 townhouses and 1 house, and build a 40 or 30 apartment complex over 3 stories, which were all 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, which nominally, the concept, I'm fine, but I'm like, well, hang on. You're calling that a medium density build. It's not medium density. It's a high density build, for one. But secondly, you look at what they're referencing. They're referencing the planning scheme. They're referencing the objectives of what they're trying to achieve with the council's, current sort of outlook. And the concept was that they want to have more use dwellings. This street's kind of already got that. So in some areas it doesn't work. In some areas the planning sort of works. The planning laws do work.
Yeah,
but you're right. In other areas,
where those high density apartments are, they're around suburbs like yours that already have a lot of high density and medium density housing around them. You don't see them in the middle of Toorak. You don't see them in the middle of Brighton. You don't see them in Sandringham. You don't see them in these rich inner east city suburbs that are, sort of 15, 20 minutes from the city, which is where people want to live. That's where they want to be, and they're where they want to go.
Work.
But you drive down those really broad avenues in the middle of Brighton, and you look around, and there are these mansions, these $6-8 million mansions. And there's not an apartment block to be seen for miles, right? So it's like that's where they need to go, is where you don't want them. That's the point. And there are cities that do this really well. Like Paris is really good at medium density, where it's like you don't have to have these mega developments, because more or less everywhere you go within the first sort of 30 arrondissements, the districts, is sort of that medium density, 3 stories, 5 stories, 6 to 12 apartments.
Europe's been doing it for years.
There is a way to do this well. We just don't give a shit about doing it well, because it's either the legislation, the voters, or everything, the local government council, all of that sort of stuff,
covenants on the land as well,
geared towards single family homes or property investors. And so you've got your single family home and you've got your 60 apartment dwellings, and there's really not much of anything in between. And the fact is those shoebox 60 apartment plus mega developments are shit to live in as well. Like, you look at the apartments in Italy, for example. A bunch of my relatives live in an apartment, in apartments. No, it's rare that people have their own house in Italy, or in Sicily, at least, where my family is from. But you go to their apartment and it's like a 3-bedroom house. There's just 5 of them on top of each other. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good sized apartment. You can raise a family there. You can have kids. There's space. You've got a bit of storage. Some of these apartments that they're talking about, that they're building, are shoeboxes. I remember we went back when we were renting. My wife and I went and looked at an apartment. It was a 1-bedroom apartment in like Camberwell or something like that, one of these suburbs, in an East Leafy white people suburbs. We go in. The kitchen was the hallway. So you go in. So it's that hallway where the kitchen is it's inbuilt into the hallway as you're walking along the hallway. You turn the corner, you go left, and then there's the bedroom. You sort of go in and there's the bedroom. I said, where's the living room? Like, it says it's got a living room. She goes, oh, you're standing in it. And it's just the corner where there's a little bit more space than the hallway. So it's like you could go maybe 1 or 2 people abreast in the hallway. You could go maybe 2 or 3 people abreast in the living room, which goes immediately into the bedroom. And that's a 1-bedroom apartment. It's not a studio. It's a 1-bedroom, because the family room is separate from the living, the family room is separate from the bedroom. Like, it's a fucking joke.
If your idea of any sort of entertainment is purely contained in a reading nook, you're good.
It was literally, you could put a chair in there. Yeah. It was literally space for a small television.
Yeah. And that was pretty, I think, that's the epitome, I guess, or the classic example of particularly apartments with these mega developments, particularly around Melbourne CBD as well, that were being built between sort of 2010 to sort of 2018, basically up to the Royal Commission, where they were just pumping these out.
SBS refers to an earlier just a quote they got from a Chinese student saying that their apartment in Melbourne City, which is 16 square meters.
Jesus Christ.
Not very much.
Pretty small. That's like 4x4 for a square. Like,
I'm pretty sure that's a cell.
16 square meter for
I'm pretty sure,
520 a week.
I'm pretty sure that's the size of this room. Like, not even joking.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So like a whole apartment being that. For $520 a week. So that George is walking up his own stairs.
He's pacing it out.
Yep.
All right, he's on one length. He's going down the other side. Okay. Yep. Then we go to quick mathematics.
It's literally 4x4. This is a 16 square meter room.
All right, George, you could be, if you just moved that entire house to the Melbourne City and then you wanted to rent out just that room, you could get $520 a week for that, apparently.
It's so fucking crazy.
Which is absurd. It's borderline humanitarian crime.
I mean, you see in other cities around the world, like, eventually you do get to a point where things just get so dense it gets ridiculous. Like, you get to sort of, places like Hong Kong, where, in various cities where you've got like the income gap can't afford the properties, and you've got like 6 dudes living in a room. And like the place they rent is just like the bed.
But which is fine. Like, well, it's not fine.
Not really.
It's bad. But like, we also have the problem here of like, yes, lots of people coming to Melbourne, and you also, like there was this article in the Financial Review this week or last week, which just talked about like these 5 guys managed to, beat the property system and buy their own house. And it's like, if you read the detail of the article, it's like, no, it's just like 3 or 4 sons. Their dad bought them a $3.8 million home, and then they're renting it from him.
Yeah, that was insane. That was like they were really struggling to find a share house.
So what they decided to do was be born rich instead.
Yeah, finding a share house is impossible. So they solved it by buying.
Their dad bought the house.
The house was nearly $4 million.
Also, like, Daddy bought the house for us.
It's insane.
My old house landlord used to be like, "Why don't you boys buy a house together?" Referring to myself and my 2 former roommates. Like, you just go in together and it's an investment. And I'm like, yeah. And then try and sell 1/3 of a house.
Yeah.
When you get to that point.
I was about to say, was your landlord John Barilaro? Because do you boys?
I don't want to say anymore. I might get sued. Let's just leave it.
You boys want to buy a house?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, you're right. You can't split a house 3 ways. I mean, you can legally, but like
it's just tough.
It's very difficult, and like mixing that with friendship and money and on that level is like absolute recipe for fucking disaster. What if one person wants to sell and the other 2 don't? Like, it's just what a shit show.
Pretty crazy. Well, the situation maybe allegedly might be helped by the federal government's policy, but they've hit a bit of a roadblock with it. Because the Liberal National Coalition and the Greens aren't particularly on board with a $10 billion fund that the Labor Party are wanting to put into their housing policy. So it really gets into weird nitty-gritty details.
A housing future fund, which I never understood the point of a future fund. Why take money and then put it into a future fund to do stuff in the future when you can take that money and do stuff now?
That's similar to what the Liberals are actually saying, is that it's just a money pot that's going to be put aside and actually taken away from real money you could spend in the budget. But basically the policy is, so Labor, there's one of the policies they pitched probably about a month before the election, something like that. They would set up this $10 billion fund, which I guess, is invested and would then recoup money over time. So $500 million a year would be used to fund the construction of new homes, as well as repair and improve existing housing for Indigenous communities, crisis accommodation, et cetera, And the concept was, in the first 5 years, the government was going to create 20,000 social housing properties and 10,000 affordable homes to frontline workers for police, nurses, cleaners, etc. Now, the Liberals are basically saying, as George pointed out, it's just a pot of money that's probably not going to get anything done.
You know what works great in governments is when they put together huge $1 billion slush funds, and it's just super accountable. They always get great returns on their investment for it. It's just really great to put aside money for the future. It sounds good. Future fund. Don't you want to put money aside for your future when you're saving up for an Xbox?
Of the future.
When you're saving up for a PlayStation 5, what do? You put aside money for the future. The Australian government can do that for you as well.
Now imagine the graphics and refresh rate you get on a house.
Way better than a PS5.
What's that? Like 16K? What's your eyeball resolution?
240 frames a second on a house.
Unreal Engine 5. What about Unreal Engine real life?
Why don't you Pokemon Go vote?
The Greens are saying that it's obviously not enough. That more needs to be done, more action, more money,
more properties. I think specifically like that. Well, we all know the Greens are often saying like you have to do more, like more, but they're actually putting it in like a number of like, it's not just do more. It's more properties need to be built because Jesus Christ, aforementioned story of not enough properties either to even rent out to international students, let alone for people to purchase and things like that. And
wants $5 billion a year offered to construct homes instead of $500 million.
Pretty me as the eat the rich, sharpen your guillotines member of the podcast. Even I see your counter offer to we're going to spend 500 million is to say spend 5 billion. That's my counter offer.
Tom just be sitting here like just sharpening his knife. You can't hear that?
Yeah, just sharpening the guillotine. But just being like, that's a bold counter negotiation of like, I see your 500 million. How about we multiply that by 10 or whatever? And just go, let's 5 billion a year. You know how the whole fund is 10 billion? I want you to spend half that yearly.
It's like a scene out of The Good Wife where they're like, we're asking for $6 million. And they go, we'll write our counter offer down on the table and slide it over to you. And he goes, it's just a dick and balls on the paper. Our counter offer is suck my dick.
Yeah.
The other thing the Greens want to do
coin,
is they want to put a national freeze on rents.
Yeah, good luck.
So this is the thing, is that Labor is obviously walking the middle ground, and you've got a crazy person on the right. Well, not a crazy person, a very ambitious person on the right, and a bunch of naysayers on the left. Oh, way around, right, and then the left. Anyway.
Stuck in the middle with you.
We're stuck in the middle. Of course, this is all. Let's just take one step back from this. We can't build houses at the moment. I don't know if you guys know.
This is the other thing. It's like,
we can't get labour. We can't get
George,
supply.
let him finish.
I work for a builder, George. This is my fault.
Get him, boy.
There is no labour. The materials are fucking out of control in terms of costs, and there's a shortage. International supply chains still haven't fully recovered yet.
Yes, exactly.
Migration is down. Basically, builders are folding left, right, and centre because they haven't got the finance. They've got invented a bunch of contracts that they can't actually fulfil. So it's not really clear who would build these houses in the next 5 years and how you would actually get that to work. The government's, I guess, saying, well, it's not our job to build houses. We're just going to finance it. Here's the clean bit of money.
I just come up with ideas.
Yeah, but you need, like, if you're going to do a housing policy, create a fucking housing policy and actually work out how you're going to achieve this. Now, look, I mean, maybe in the next 6 months, with migration picking up and potentially some of the backlog from 2020, 2021 sort of evening out, maybe it gets a bit better. But, like, I don't see how we're going to, unless the government really, I mean, I kind of agree with the Greens, unless the government really sinks its teeth into this and sort of like actually grabs it and has collaboration from the state government and local governments in certain key target areas, they're not going to get this done.
But the thing is,
not
like,
the level which they want.
It really is a wicked problem because, like, just by pouring more money into it, if you do what the Greens say and put $5 billion a year into building houses, that's strategy. Not necessarily going to solve the problem either, because it's like all you're going to do is you're going to get marginally, for each additional unit of housing that you build, you're going to be more inefficient because, yes, there's more money, but it's competing for the same number of,
but also trades
the same number of tradies, the same number of materials, the same number of, like, all of that stuff is like, there's a pipeline of that stuff and it's limited. So to just like throw more money on the problem isn't actually going to solve it. It's going to make it worse. You're going to get more or less the same number of houses. You're just going to be paying a shitload more for each one of them. Yep. And because everyone goes government contract, great. I'll whack 20% on double. That. I'll put cheese on that. Yeah, for sure. So it doesn't actually solve the problem. And we didn't even touch on things like land banking and things like that, where basically because foreign investors and other rich people here domestically as well know that housing prices in Australia just seem to keep going up and up and up. This Madoff guy seems like a genius. His investments keep going up and up and up forever. This will never come down. Basically what people do is they'll buy housing stock and then just sit on it, because that actually the investment for them is the capital growth in the property itself. So they buy it for 500, they sell it for 800 in a year or two. If they rent it out, well, that's hassle. You got to get a renter in there. You got to check their credit history. You got to manage it. You got to replace the dishwasher. You got to, look after the property in such a way as to make sure that it's habitable. Fuck that. It's only like 15 grand or so over 2 years. Who cares? I'll just buy it, leave it empty, and then sell it in a couple of years and make a profit on it, because that's what I'm really here to do anyway. So it's just like there's properties that exist that people could live in, which are sitting empty because they're, tax shelters for, foreign billionaires, or straight up, fucking black holes for drug money for, just dodgy sort of property investment, normal legal property investment shenanigans as well. So it's like just pouring money on it isn't going to solve it.
Fire hose of money. Just what we all need.
And it's money that's going to come out of the budget now when we've got a budget deficit, when we're, spiraling even more into debt with interest rates rising. So we're going to pay interest rates on that $10 billion now because we're going to borrow it, presumably. So we're paying interest on that money now to put it in a future fund to at some point do something good with it, maybe, provided it doesn't get sloughed off into, dodgy slush funds, government corruption activities, which we'll be talking about on this podcast in 10 years. It turns out that $1 billion slush fund was no good. That was weird.
Who'd have thought?
I'm here from the future to tell you, guys, I just got back from the future. Turns out it was all corrupt bullshit all the way down. That's why housing is not an investment. It's
well-intentioned corrupt bullshit, George.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite kind of corrupt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was corrupt with the best of intentions. They were corrupt with a red pin on their lapel as opposed to a blue pin on their lapel. So that's good.
So in summary, housing is fucked in Australia, and
Labor are maybe doing half a good thing.
Half a good thing.
Half a good thing.
Speaking
of Labor doing half a good thing.
It should be their slogan, right? Labor, we tried doing a good thing.
Yeah, Labor, we go halfway there on a good thing. So speaking of the Labor Party doing half a good thing, pivoting to different policy at the moment, the federal government has granted thousands of refugees in Australia who have lived, quote, in limbo for years to be eligible to stay in the country permanently. So something like 19,000 refugees who, this is, I think, the kicker, 19,000 refugees who arrived in Australia before they started Operation Sovereign Borders in 2013 will be able to apply to transition to permanent visas. Previously these people have been living on temporary protection visas or safe haven visas, which Labor, I think part of their election campaign was a promise to abolish those kinds of visas. But yeah, I just think this is interesting because good refugees who have fled awful things to come here, that they get they're able to stay, and also that grants them things like access to the national disability payments, any kind of social security or education assistance, all that sort of stuff. That's all great and awesome. They could also apply for citizenships and all the rights that entails. But yeah, again, it is for people who arrived prior to Operation Sovereign Borders starting in 2013.
Anyone from 2014 onwards can get fucked.
They can still be in, forever torture camp. They can keep them in there for as long as they want. So half a good thing, I feel there. It's just,
well, what about if they go too hard, Tom? The boats will come back.
Exactly.
There'll be boats. Literally, you say that, but that's literally cited in this article.
That is
as
literally
what from the coalition. Yeah.
Yeah, the Shadows Home Affairs Minister or whatever is like, it'll enliven opportunities for people smugglers. It's just they trot out the same shit every time, and it's such bullshit. It is so infuriating.
Do you think though, if here's a question. I mean, if hypothetically, they're right, if they sort of went, do you think that people smuggling would increase?
As in admit people to the country who have been living here for nigh on a decade?
No. If you shut down Manus Island, Nauru, and sort of stopped the offshore processing or whatever it's called, offshore detention. If you stopped that policy, do you think, that there would be an increase in people smuggling? Or do you think that's just government at this stage, in this era, this economy? Do you reckon that's just hyperbole and fear-mongering?
Well, I definitely think it's hyperbole and fear-mongering. Like, I'm hardly across, I guess, a lot of any of the evidence of people smuggling and all that sort of stuff. But it's mainly a thing of, if we are more like the people smuggling aspect seems to be because not only do they need to be snuck out of where they're escaping, but also that they might need to be snuck into where they're wanting to get to. And if they don't have to sneak, like if it's we have arrived on a boat because Iran's on fire or these sorts of things, it's like, hey, when we've arrived here, and they're like, okay, cool, well, welcome here. You are rescued. We will then process all the claims and whatever and da-da-da-da-da-da. You don't really need to be smuggled into a place that will treat you kindly, you know?
So you're saying that the alternative would be that we proactively provide avenues for these people to enter the country more safely rather than
via a plane, via a safe route.
Yeah.
And
then you don't have people dying at sea. Like I think there is a 1-to-1 correlation between how dangerous people's lives are in the place that they are living them and them wanting to leave the country and go elsewhere and come to places like Australia. Like, I don't think it really has much to do with Australian government policy. I very much doubt some Indonesian people smuggler is sitting in his dinghy refreshing ABC News to see what the latest policy positions of the government are in regards to people smuggling in order to go, which way should I go? I'm just imagining Watto from No Credits, Only Money from Phantom Menace. But it's like it is purely it's a direct result of people being safe in the places where they live. The state of the current milieu in geopolitics has much more of an effect on the kind of migration and refugee, asylum seekers, all that sort of stuff that you see in other countries. Is how good is it in their country? If they don't have to leave, if they don't want to leave, like these people don't want to leave unless their lives are being threatened. You know, if I had
so what you're advocating for is more proactive diplomacy and foreign aid and whatever else to try and directly improve the countries. I guess the thing is, like, there's a limit to that. So I think you can do those things. I don't think you'll eliminate it entirely.
Yeah, but you only need to deal with your strategic, partners in the region, right? Like, you're really not having to.
Indonesia is obviously key in all this. Yeah,
in Indonesia, Pacific Island nations, like that sort of stuff. Yeah, Sri Lanka, maybe like there's the Philippines and stuff like that. But it would be, exceedingly rare to be getting Afghani asylum seekers at this stage, I think, by boat.
Well, no. So during the war, a lot of them trekked halfway across Asia
saying now,
and then to Indonesia and then had gone on a boat from there.
Yeah, okay. But I'm saying right now, that's not a concern, or not as much of a concern as it was 10 years ago.
It might even be more of a concern given the Taliban are in control. But I mean, what gets my point is
the point is that, like, we do what we can from where we are to improve the via foreign aid and diplomacy and things like that, to set up situations abroad where people don't feel as though they need to come here in the first place. I am very skeptical of the efficacy of the idea of, like, let's set up torture camps for people to dissuade them from coming here. I don't think that works. Number one. And number two, from an ethical, like, humanitarian perspective, I think it's completely despicable. Even if it did work, I don't think that's an acceptable way to behave to other human beings. So, like, whatever the concept, say there are more migrants, Australia is a big country and we can take them. And frankly, we need the growth. Like, the only way, with our slowing birth rate and aging population, the only way Australia is going to continue to grow economically is through migration. Yeah. So what's the big fucking problem? If people are fighting tooth and nail on boats to get here, surely we should just allow them to get on a plane and come here and pay taxes and work and build housing stock.
It's funny because, like, all this considering, the immigration department is still, I don't know whether it's like for the last 20 years, they just haven't worked out that they need more staff to process, or a better system to process more visa applications.
Under-resourced.
But because they're always saying, we're just so behind. It's like, how? You're always behind. Yeah. The fuck's how has no one decided? Are they deliberate? The only thing I can think of is they're deliberately doing it.
Yeah,
they're deliberately under-resourcing.
It's the cruelty's the point.
Yeah.
And, it's not only you get to live in forever prison, but like it won't be a short stint in forever prison because it takes us so long to go through shit. Like it's just layers upon layers of the intentional cruelty.
Every developed country in the world has to deal with this problem. The problem of
Italy is just getting
asylum
like
seekers
destroyed by it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but like we're not Italy, right? Like if you want to see what a migration problem looks like, go back 5 years in Italy, and during the war in Syria, and have tens of thousands of people coming onto your shores every week. That's a migration problem. We have thousands in a year, a few thousand that turn up to Australia and enter illegally.
I think the worst was 10,000 in a year. I think.
Okay, I'm sorry, 10,000 is completely fucking negligible against a population of 25 million. Like we get more people just like coming over from New Zealand and then just like deciding not to go back. You know what I mean? Like, but it doesn't bother us because those people, guess what? Newsflash, it's about racism. Those people are white, so it doesn't bother us.
Yeah. And also, just for another little layer of even half the good things still might not be entirely good because, the people who arrived prior to Operation Sovereign Borders who'd be eligible for this sort of thing, the ones who have already had their temporary visas refused or cancelled or whatever can't apply for it. They arrived before the policy started. They're in that period, but no, you're not allowed to try for this.
Psych.
Fuck you. So Labour doing half a good thing and then going, but we don't wanna.
Got to appeal for those centre voters, Tom, the ones that might potentially vote for the other side. You want to keep them on your side.
Centre voters, the ones who are always known for doing stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, what I want is those decisive centrists.
Yeah, gotta love those centre voters. Those guys stand for something.
Yeah, I don't know. Peter Dutton seems to be a really compelling, emotional character. I think he's almost Shakespearean in the depth of his humanity to other people. But I don't know. This Anthony Albanese guy also seems fairly compelling. I hear he grew up in Merrickville as the son of a single mother. So I don't know who I'm going to vote for. They both seem equally good. Says me, a fucking idiot.
Speaking of equally good or not, depending on which way you look at it, I think what they're saying now is that the quote-unquote grassroots campaign against the voice to Parliament, the No campaign, as it were, is become Australia's richest, funded campaign or something. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like a No campaign. I believe they are called Fair Australia, is what they refer to themselves as, which, you hear names like that, and I immediately think you're a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
anything with like United or
Fair Australia or like Advanced Australia or whatever. Like, it's like seeing someone wearing the flag as a cape. I'm like, I immediately assume you're a piece of shit just by how you are presenting yourself. So yeah, when you hear that the movement's called Fair Australia, doesn't bode well. But seems like it may not be grassroots, but more some AstroTurf. Good old AstroTurfing.
So
what is AstroTurfing for those people who do not know what that is?
Well, it's sort of like where you, much like how AstroTurf is gives the illusion of grass being an artificial grass. This is AstroTurfing is like creating a artificial grassroots movement. So you make something seem like it is grassroots, like starting from like the people in community and sort of building up through community sentiment and ideas, and not so much being lobbied and things like that, but like from a sentiment of community sentiment. But an AstroTurfing instance is where you're kind of cheating that. You want it to look that way, but if you follow the money, you see that the money is coming from some rather wealthy or vested interest.
Always got to follow the money.
People.
Yeah. So Jacinta Price made an unexpected announcement. I believe it was last week. So she's teaming up with Warren Mundine to lead Fair Australia. So this is an organization that's just a little baby organization, little nice, cute little baby, so young and new. So this is the No Campaign movement, but it is funded by the well-known of us to us who follow these things, right-wing group Advance. And this article from Crikey goes into some of the famous sort of right-wing figures that are behind funding this group. But essentially it's like, yeah, exactly what you say, Tom. It's meant to look like a grassroots No Campaign. It's just the community gathering around, not giving people Indigenous rights, just naturally coalescing around the inspiring vision that says no to a voice to Parliament. Well, it turns out it's funded by a bunch of rich right-wing shitheads.
Yep. So that's fun.
Yeah,
that's exactly what this, as we sort of talked about last week and in previous weeks, this incredibly nuanced issue needs. Right-wing shitheels trying to take over the narrative.
So Jacinta Price's involvement with the Advance campaign, which is formerly called Advance Australia Against the Voice, called Fair Australia, is pretty unsurprising. So she was named the right-wing lobby group's spokesperson in 2020 before she was elected to the Senate last year. Her comments are frequently, so what they do is they've got this sort of like pipeline of right-wing sort of content, essentially. So she makes comments about it, and then it's frequently repackaged, put together, edited down, and then shared to Advance's 104,000 followers on Facebook and beyond with paid advertising. So it's this kind of this weird pipeline where it acts as though it's like a separate group, right? So similar to in the United States where you've got all these like, anti-vax groups or things like that. They generate the content, and then the content is pushed through this pipeline and then promoted and re-promoted via, more established, legitimate sort of platforms like Fox News and things like that. So it's similar kind of tactics here. It's like, oh no, look, it's just Senator Jacinta Price giving her thoughts on the matter. Like we just really want to hear what this Indigenous member of Parliament has to say. But yeah, then it's sort of constantly repackaged and pushed through in this sort of like content mill type fashion to Advance, which acts as though they don't have a relationship, even though they clearly do. So it's bad.
Yeah, like, astroturfing kind of actions. Just, we talk about perversing the democratic process a lot on on this show. It's like, it's a kind of a way of that. Like, it's one thing to have like really obvious, it's like clearly, oh, this is big business lobbying this. Like, we all know what this is, and we can either listen to or ignore and like contextualize as it sees fit to kind of hide that or to kind of try and like give the illusion that it's not that. It's allowed, but it's shitty.
I guess, I don't know. I wonder, like, are these things, like, is Jacinta Price, does she genuinely believe this stuff? And she's just kind of like, she's a genuine no vote person on the Voice to Parliament and is using that as a way of building up this fake grassroots support and sort of channeling money from the right wing to her purposes? Or is she just like completely soulless and like sort of completely agnostic? Does she have any principles and she's like violating those principles? Because I don't know, does that make it worse if you're sort of advocating for something you don't genuinely believe in for money, or like hijacking the movement? I don't know. Does that make it better or worse if you believe or don't actually believe what it is you are being paid to say? Like,
I don't know.
I feel, it's probably just not as simple as a yes or no, because it also probably depends what you are saying. But yeah, I think at face value, accepting money to promote a thing you don't believe in, not great. I don't like just at the gut feeling of an ethical kind of standpoint, be like, I'd feel weird about that. Like if someone was coming to me being like, we'll pay you X amount of money to promote pokies, I'd be like, no, that wouldn't feel right. If I just accepted that and started doing it, that wouldn't feel right. So yeah.
So Advance was created in 2018, I believe. So just prior to the pandemic.
And it's also just gross that it's named after
the national anthem.
Yeah, the national anthem, Advance Australia Fair.
I mean, it's not a great national anthem, so I guess that's sort of fitting.
It's pretty, like, I mean, they're opening, you look at the about section, and then the first thing they talk about was in 2018, woke politicians and elitist activist groups were taking Aussies for a ride. With their radical
so
agenda,
what we decided to do is put together a lobby group headed up by inside a high-profile businessman, Maurice Newman from Kennard's Self-Storage Managing Director, Sam Kennard. That's what the elites are taking us for a ride. So we put together a cabal of right-wing businessmen to take them to task.
But the first thing they reference here is with everything from Australia Day to the Anzacs under attack. So the first thing they talk about is something that's already, affects Indigenous people. And they are, I guess, if they're, one of the primary backers of the No campaign, it's obviously, this is headed up by a bunch of racists, basically.
In the first 4 months, Advance Australia raised $395,000 and signed up 27,500 members. By May 2019, it had raised $1.7 million, according to Bernadette. It raises money through donations on his website. The Gerard Benedette's the regional, the national director. Bernadette says the membership is 60% male and has an average age of about 50. So essentially, what we're saying is, when are the middle-aged white guys going to get a go?
It's interesting that one of the opening page is got Jacinta Price's face on it. And then, one of the things they've picked out of her, what she's said so far, is that the Indigenous voice to Parliament will wreck our constitution, rewire our democracy, and divide Australians by race. Yeah, and there's this, and then she says here, it is not right to divide us along the lines of race, especially within our Australian founding document. But is it dividing us by race, or is it just saying that there were people here before white settlement?
No, what it's saying is there should be an Indigenous voice to Parliament to represent the perspective of Indigenous people who are currently underrepresented. They make up a significant portion of the Australian community, and yet the legislation, the rules that govern them, really have no contact with them. And the fact that, I don't know whether Jacinta Price genuinely believes this or not, but clearly this right-wing, borderline racist, there's some dog whistles in that sentence that you just read from there, Adam, right? Dividing us by race, and it's going to rewire our democracy. The blacks are coming. They're coming to take our democracy. All of that stuff is... I don't know if this is just overly cynical of me, but it does sound like a bunch of white cashed up racists finding a token black person to
It feels a bit
to
like that.
clothe their vaguely fucking racist opinion and give it some kind of credibility by putting a black face on it. Like, that's what it seems like to me.
I would like to know more about her background and sort of how she's come to this, because I don't want to judge it by its cover.
She might genuinely have those beliefs.
It's looking a little bit like that.
The 1 in 100 that genuine, like, I'm sure if you poll deeply enough, you'll be able to find other Indigenous people that have that belief. I'm certain that they are the minority. Like, without doing any research, I'm certain off the top of my head that it's probably fair to say most Indigenous people are in favor of an Indigenous voice to Parliament. So them finding her and boosting that voice in particular, I think, is a cynical act to validate and to blackwash, if you will, their racist fucking perspective. Go, look, an Indigenous person saying it's not us. It's not us, the wealthy businessman behind this.
It feels disingenuous, but I would still, and I will do this in the background. I wouldn't be mind, I will have a look at to see how she came to this sort of viewpoint, and also to see how she was elected and a few other different things as well, because she's obviously on the Nationals ticket, from my understanding, who are a conservative party as well. So, I mean, that says a bit. But
also maybe it's like what you have to do to advance in the LNP is like share the same racist shitheel views that they do. And that's how you sort of carve out your niche, right? Like,
I mean, she would have to go along to get along to a certain extent within that environment, I would assume. But it's interesting. And it's the same thing she said in America with various campaigns. There's lots of money behind the facade of what certain people or groups say.
It's our version of super PACs, and it's really starting to hit here now in a serious way.
But seeing grassroots looking campaigns being funded by a bunch of piss babies is just generally not good. No. Speaking of piss babies,
thank you.
Elon Musk.
I was just about to do that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Speaking of giant piss babies, probably the biggest, certainly one of the most wealthiest piss babies on the planet is Elon Musk, because he's doing... I mean, I don't get why anyone would be surprised at this, but stories came out recently that he has been instructing engineers at Twitter to tweak the algorithm so that his shit is seen by more people.
What a fucking little bitch. Honestly, what a fucking loser.
Little
this
piss
guy is.
baby.
What a little piss baby. His Super Bowl tweet didn't do as good as Joe Biden's. And he goes, but why? I'm the richest boy in the world. My tweets should be on the top of the Twitters. So at 2:36 a.m. in the morning on Monday morning, James Musk sent an urgent message to Twitter engineers. Quote, we are debugging an issue with engagement across the platform, wrote Musk, a cousin of the Twitter CEO, tagging @here in the Slack channel to ensure that anyone would see it. Anyone in the channel will get a notification at 2:36 a.m. on their Slack to see this message. Any people who can make dashboards and write software, please can you help solve this problem? This is high urgency. If you are willing to help out, please thumbs up this post. Over 80 engineers thumbs up that post. So this is what you're doing. If you're still at Twitter, I can't imagine you must really need that fucking job, my dude, because I cannot imagine a scenario where I get a Twitter notification at 3:00 in the morning. It says, Elon's sad that his tweet didn't do good. All hands on deck.
Yep.
Anyway.
What was the tweet?
Working.
Oh, it was so fucking banal and generic. It was just like
who fucking cares?
It was just like fucking
was it
go
really
Eagles or something. No, it was like something completely fucking banal. And basically one of the engineers explained to him, he's like, I've been looking at my engagement and it's way down. It shouldn't be going down. I've got 10 million, whatever it is, 100 million Twitter followers. And and so Musk, who tweeted his support for the Eagles, generated a little more than 9.1 million impressions before deleting the tweet in apparent frustration. You fucking loser. In the wake of those losses, the Musk, the president of the Twitter CEO, flew his private jet back to the Bay Area on Sunday night to demand answers from his team.
Oh, just so fucking great. And this ties into that other
loser.
story recently where he was just being like, why... hey, Twitter engineers, why are my tweets getting less engagement than others? Like, what's going? Like, there's something wrong with the thing. And an engineer said that, which is like, but not like, I presume, not in a shitty way, but was like, here's the metrics and the Google trends. It's just like, I think people are just less interested in what you're doing at the moment. Which I was talking to my brother about it, who's been on the show before. I'm just saying, he just said, man, it must be satisfying to just say to Elon Musk's face, I think people just think you're boring.
Anyway, subsequently,
delicious.
That Twitter engineer was fired in the room.
Yes, it was fired in the room. Because of course he was, because Elon's a giant piss baby. But...
Anyway, so now they fixed the algorithm, and even though I've got Elon Musk muted, all of a sudden I'm seeing his tweets, seeing people responding to his tweets. I'm seeing all sorts of shit. I had to block him because I was like, I can't, I don't want to see any of this from you, and it's still somehow showing up in my feed. How the fuck is this possible?
I can't remember. I saw someone on Twitter share this sentiment where I was like, that's actually genius. And I immediately blocked Elon as a result because it was like, look, we're all going to see his tweets because any of the interesting ones people are screenshotting and sharing around the internet to laugh at him. So if you haven't blocked him because what he says might be important, you'll see the important stuff. So instead just block him because that tanks his engagement and that will make his meltdowns funnier. And I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. If me just blocking him can hurt his day, even a myot, just the tiniest little bit. Yep, done. Anything that ruins Elon Musk's day, I think, is our moral obligation.
And meanwhile, this is meant to be like Green Jesus saving the planet with his electric cars. Meanwhile, he's taking his private jet to bitch about a tweet. What a little soft cock baby bitch. What a loser.
Yeah.
What a fucking, you're the rich, or at least were before you invested in this shithole company and burnt it to the ground. You're the richest person in the world. And you go, my toy doesn't, I want to make the Twitter go faster. Why doesn't everyone love me? Love me.
Oh God, he cares so much about whether or not he's liked by like the memes community.
Oh my God.
Like just.
What a sad loser.
Oh, I saw some clip of him like sitting in and like, clearly in a boardroom or meeting room or whatever with a bunch of other Twitter employees. And he was talking about his tweets and stuff and said he posted some meme. I think they were talking about whether or not he should be like accrediting memes that he's taken from other people. Like someone else has made a meme and he
like
then
regularly
just
rips off hard drive news.
Yeah,
they make a joke about how often Elon Musk rips off their shit and just reposts it without attribution.
People were criticizing him for that, and he and the engineers were sort of saying like, oh no, I mean that's the point of memes, they're shareable around, but also you create some memes. He's like, yeah I do, and one guy was like, yeah, your meme game's strong. And I was like, oh my God, he's surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men, and it's so insane.
Yeah, I love you, Elon. Oh, your butthole tastes so good, Elon.
Definitely.
Oh baby, oh Elon, your asshole tastes like ice cream. You're so delicious, Elon. I love you.
Good God, I wanted that
Fuck
to
off.
end. But yeah, just like absolute insanity. And yeah, you're right, Adam. That is part of the problem, because I guess after he did his mass firings and his insane power trip through Twitter, anyone who had like a shred of dignity left, and the rest of them are just massive Elon Musk fans.
No, I don't think that stands. I think they're literally just like, I have to make mortgage payments and I have not been able to line something else up.
True,
like I'm just in a place where I cannot lose this job right now.
Need the healthcare or something.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. But it's just fucking incredible. But I also love seeing people online, like Elon Musk will tweet like something that's, clearly like a joke or a meme or whatever. And someone just posts afterwards always saying, all right, can someone show me the tweet where he stole this from? And someone would always be able to dig up some other account that says essentially the same thing, sometimes word for word, and the timestamps prove it was before Elon tweeted it.
God, what a loser.
And it's not just like, two people can think of the same joke kind of stuff, but it's like it happens
word for word
consistently, so often, too much for it to be a coincidence. It's I don't know.
You think people aren't going to find out?
Wanker.
Oh God, are you still defending him, Adam? Are you still an Elon Musk stan? Can you stomach this guy? I really don't understand.
I really like SpaceX. So if
how
I can separate, I guess SpaceX.
George, we could dig up some clips of you loving some Elon Musk. I reckon 5-6 years ago.
I think I like admired some of the things. Well, you know what it is. It's that you have an idea of a person that is fed to you from the mainstream media because it is based on press releases that the person themselves has likely given the media in order to tell about. So it's like, yeah, okay, he built Tesla. That's a really impressive company. Well, he didn't build Tesla. He bought Tesla. Okay, yeah, he's done XYZ with SpaceX. It's like, actually, he took a bunch of, like once you learn more about someone more deeply, I don't think there's any billionaires that I really admire, man. And you're right. There probably is positive things that I've said about him in the past because of his business acumen. But having learned more about him, I retract all of those things.
I do wonder how much of it is just the Twitter thing is sort of revealed is it just that the Twitter whole scenario, the whole saga has revealed a mirror or shown a mirror to the thing that was already there, or has it just made it worse? To the point where it's so self-indulgent and
it's both.
Gross now.
It's shown what was always there, and it's also increased amplified his malignant narcissism, because now all day, every day, Twitter has rotted Elon Musk's brain in the same way that he is terminally online, like everyone else on Twitter. It's like it's rotted his brain the same as all of ours. He's just in a position where he's rich enough to own the place now, and now he's just gone like Alice through the looking glass, like Narcissus trying to kiss himself in the pond, and it's just, sort of fallen down a Mobius strip of self-entitled bullying and narcissism and self-aggrandizement. Like it's like, man, if you retired 5 years ago, you would have been the MVP of the business world. There's no one in the world to millennials who was like more looked up to, more respected, the good billionaire, right? Green energy, cars, with Tesla, multiple very, very successful businesses. Like if you just yeeted out of here 5 years ago, you would have gone down as one of the greats. Now he's a fucking punchline. He's a joke.
Yeah, if he just disappeared.
Yeah, maybe if he just disappeared like Kaiser Soze, if he just like walked off, got into a car, into a Tesla, and then was never seen again, it would have gone down in history as one of the most sort of prolific
the Saturday
businessmen.
Night Live thing I found very weird. That I was like, why do you need to go on Saturday Night Live?
Because it's all about him. What? It's always been about him. And the more you look into his history and all of this like bullshit, like essentially scams that he was running with his business, where he told there was some investor that they wanted to get on board, but the investor was like, I'm not going to get on board until you get these government contracts, sort of these government bailout sort of investment funds from the government. And he just lied and said he had them. And so the investor got on board. And so they were able to get through to the next step and get through that. And then they got the government money because they were viable for another 6 months. It's just like, it's the guys a fucking shyster, dickhead, capitalist, fuckwit, just like all the rest of them. Like they're all like this. You don't get to be a billionaire by being a chill dude who does nice things. Like
just walking around giving everyone the thumbs up.
They're all like this. And I'm sure if you gave, any of them a platform, they'd also do the same insane shit that he's been doing for the last 6 months. Like
100%.
Okay. All right. We're going to wrap this up.
Yeah. Speaking of insane shit, you've just been listening to ours for the past however long it's been. So you know what? You've earned a break. Get a little treat. Have an ice cream.
I just realized I didn't hit record.
Ah, fuck. That's the worst.
What?
No, I'm joking. Thanks for listening, guys.
Joking. George, he wouldn't pause for that long after saying that. He'd be like, oh, I forgot we hit record. And you'd just be hearing just expletives for the longest time.
I just
the kind
wanted
of
to make
stuff
you
that
guys...
we only get to hear, Adam.
I just wanted you to think you'd been through all of that for nothing. On that note, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and motherfucking TikTok. And make sure you follow us for our live stream Sunday afternoon on twitch.tv/Unnatural Show. And you know what? Why don't you give us 5 stars on iTunes? Don't be a dick.
Do it. 5-star.
Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me down to Toorak, where I'll be trying to find a grassroots campaign led by a wealthy businessman that will, change the face of Australian democracy.
I hear they are frequent in Toorak.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of grassroots campaigns hanging out in Toorak. Just speaking of grass, Elon Musk is the perfect example of someone who just needs to go outside and touch grass. You know what I mean? Like you just need to go outside, Elon, feel the breeze on your face, go outside, drink in some sun. It's all going to be okay, you little narcissistic weirdo. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.
See you.